Welcome to this special edition of Hannity. I'm Kellyanne Conway, in for Sean. Thanksgiving is just days away, but during this holiday designed to reflect and be thankful for all that we have, the Democrats are angrier than ever. Just take a look at this op-ed in the New York Times written by Ragin' Cajun James Carville, which he titled, "Out with Woke, In with Rage." Meanwhile, there's more trouble brewing in paradise, because according to the New York Times, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is facing increased pushback of what the Times describes as a fight club of his fellow Senate Democrats. According to the report, in a sign of the left's frustration, a group of liberal senators is challenging Schumer on his approach to next November's midterms and Schumer's approach to President Trump. The trouble does not stop there, because Democrats are now facing an all-out battle within their own party, as more radical Mamdani-style candidates are surging in key races. So what's the Democratic plan to counter President Trump? Apparently, it's the same old doubling down on their hatred and nasty name-calling. Listen to what 87-year-old Congresswoman Maxine Waters had to say.
This is an important press conference that is being held to let you know what we're all doing, resisting this low-down, dirty, no-good, filthy president.
Poster for term limits, isn't she? While Democrats work themselves into a blind rage, President Trump was his usual hilarious self during today's lighthearted turkey pardon. Take a look at some of the highlights.
The turkeys being pardoned today go by the names of Gobble and Waddle. When I first saw their pictures, I thought we should send them, I shouldn't say this. I was going to call them Chuck and Nancy. But then I realized I wouldn't be pardoning them. I would never pardon those two people. I wouldn't pardon them. I wouldn't care what Melania told me. Darling, I think it would be a nice thing to do. I won't do it, darling. Sleepy Joe Biden, he used an auto pen last year for the turkey's pardon. So I have the official duty to determine, and I have determined that last year's turkey pardons are totally invalid. Instead of pardons, some of my more enthusiastic staffers were already drafting the paperwork to ship Gobble and Waddle straight to the terrorist confinement center in El Salvador. And even those birds don't want to be there. You know what I mean? It was a tough.
Here with reaction, OutKick columnist Katharine Ham and Fox News contributor Joe Concha. Now, Katharine, it looks like from the last couple of weeks, Democrats got the upper hand in a couple of the elections in blue states and the blue city of New York. But have they really, when they're turning to Maxine Waters and James Carville saying, go for the rage? What is your prediction for the midterms? What do you think Republicans and President Trump need to do to push back on these folks?
Yeah, I'm sort of surprised because, y'all just won, and they took about 2.5 days to be happy about it, and then it was right back at each other. And look, some of that is natural. Battle lines are being drawn inside their party between the Mamdani types and a more moderate vision for the future, or at least a more moderate coded one, because not a lot of them are actually moderate. So there are battle lines being drawn. There are fights that are going to be had. A lot of those are going to be in primaries, and they might get pretty ugly, right? So a lot of that will distract the Democratic Party from coming together on a message of affordability, which is what Carville argued for, although he argued for it with an angry face. He's like, be very angry about these issues. And I'm not sure that's actually the sell. And as you see, Trump is the contrast and goofing off with the turkeys. That doesn't always lead you to a path of luring a lot of people to your party. The underlying issues will be what is at stake.
And Joe, to her point, if you split the screen, even Maxine Waters, Nancy Pelosi, Cory Booker, Spartacus, pretending to fight sword with himself in the Senate chamber, saying absolutely nothing to no one. By the way, he and Kamala Harris got the same number of votes in the Democratic primary, 0, when they ran on their own. When you split the screen with President Trump today having a great time in the Rose Garden, he makes himself the most accessible, available, accountable president in our nation's history. How can the Democrats truly stop him as the chief messenger? And I want to ask you a very specific thing about the media. I feel in the 10 years of the age of President Trump, no one has ever effectively ignored him into irrelevance. They all need him. You have a couple of anchors, like the guy on ABC has written his 4th book about Trump. They need him, don't they?
Yeah, And that guy is Jonathan Karl, who you're referring to, right? Formerly a chief White House correspondent, Kellyanne, written 4 books about Trump, 0 about Joe Biden. I'm pretty sure that was worthy of a book. I know I did one. But in the end, can we please dispense with taking James Carville seriously anymore? I mean, this guy ran on the coattails of Bill Clinton, who won with 43% of the vote in 1992, thanks to Ross Perot taking 19%. And now we're supposed to treat him as some sort of like godlike play caller when it comes to winning elections. I mean, shut the front door. Rage will not win. The economy wins. And if Donald Trump and his big bet on tariffs ends up producing the kind of economy that Americans can appreciate, that's what's going to win that election. Not rage. That's certainly for sure. Hillary Clinton knows this. Kamala Harris knows this. Being anti-Trump is not good enough. Where are your ideas? Where is your policy to make the lives of the American people better? Rage isn't going to do it, Kellyanne.
You know, Mary Catherine, I probably met you decades ago when the Republicans were being attacked for being beholden to their right wing. They can't get rid of the evangelical Christians and the NRA and the right wing. It's actually the Democrats who are under serious threat from the hard left. They have a socialist who just became mayor of New York. They have other Mamdani-like candidates who are surging in these primaries. Do you think that's an existential threat to a Democratic Party, or do you think that's where a lot of the country wants the party to go?
It is a problem for them. They have been absolutely dragged left up until now and probably will be continuing to during this primary season. The underlying issues will matter, as Joe notes, whether the economy is working for people or it's not. That's a lot of what this decision will be made on. But what Carville was saying also was like, you need to be angry about the economy with these people. The thing about Carville is that he is actually slightly closer to normal than like a 2020, 2023 Democrat, right? So he's like, here's how you could speak to normal people if you wanted to try. But they still face all of those groups in their primaries, right? All of the peak woke constituencies are all fighting each other. They're currently fighting each other about what Mamdani is going to do in New York City because it's never going to be enough for them. And so they face that, and that is a weakness in and of itself of them building movements. But people will respond to the economy regardless.
Yes. And Joe, you're making the same point. I've seen you speak a little bit over the weekend about the Oval Office meeting between Mamdani and President Trump. But I wanted to ask you, for all the people out there saying that Mamdani had the upper hand, I looked at it the exact opposite. That's Trump in full. Charming you, giving you the benefit of the doubt until you do some radical stuff and then calling you out on it. A couple days past that meeting, how do you read it? What do you think the consequence of it really was?
Well, the consequence is, I think, that the Democratic Party thinks that Mamdani or AOC or the squad in general, that's the path forward, Kellyanne, as far as winning national elections. And in New York City, you could win there, I guess, or Chicago, Minneapolis, Seattle, San Francisco. That's your guy. Or socialism is your brand. But if you want to win, and you know this better than anybody else in the world, Kellyanne, in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, North Carolina, if you want to connect with working class people, the people that decide those elections in those states, you want to run somebody who is that brand, roll the dice and take your chances, because in a national election, that just ain't going to fly. So Mamdani may have, charmed President Trump or vice versa. I saw it as President Trump being presidential to Mamdani, but the minute Mamdani asks for a handout to support all the free stuff that he wants to pay for, I'm sorry, Trump's going to say, no thanks, you're on your own.
And you mentioned 6 states in a row that Trump absolutely won decisively in 2024. Excellent point. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. Mary Catherine Ham, Joe Concha.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.